small plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood. That's what Daniel Burnham, a big-time architect from my hometown of Chicago, used to say to inspire us.
Does the same thing to women's blood too, Mr. Matthes.
Ah, right you are, Miss Erena Lopez. And you are case in point of that yourself. You had some mighty big plans to bring the first skyscraper to the coast.
That I did, Mr. Matthes. Mr. Carl Matthes, the architect. I remember thinking that Biloxi could use a towering hotel, like the ones that I saw when I went to school in Mobile or when I was visiting New Orleans. If only someone would put in the work. And then I thought, well, why can't that someone be me? I had long time ran the family store, the Dulion Mercantile Company, right in downtown Biloxi, on the corner of Raynor Street and Howard Avenue. And I knew that selling that store and using the profits to build a hotel would be no small feat. But as a businesswoman, I was willing to take the risk. And plus, my sister had done something similar just a few years earlier when she had sold the dear old family home and built a commercial property. And I mean, at the time, it was sad to see it go, but you know, Biloxi just wasn't the sleepy little town that it was when I was growing up, and downtown just didn't have the room for large homes anymore. So I bought a parcel of land from the Ducates. Oh, you should know the property. It was your wife's family.
Yes, it was.
And my plan was to knock it down and build a first-rate hotel. But she had to be tall, every inch of it. So, Mr. Matthes, tell me again, what does it take for a building to be a skyscraper?
Well, there is plenty of debate about this, but what it boils down to is how a building is constructed. In the old method of construction, the exterior walls carried the load of the floors above. So to build a tall building required very thick walls at the sacrifice of the interior space on the lower levels. Using the new method of construction, the building is held up by an interior structural framework. So just like your body is held upright by your skeleton, the building stays up the same way. Now, in Chicago, where I learned my craft, these frameworks were made from steel in the big roller mills of that area. Now for Biloxi, the shipping price of steel was far too expensive, so I recommended building our framework out of concrete. A framework made out of 10-inch by 10-inch beams could support the weight of a 5-story building quite nicely while leaving plenty of interior space on the ground floor for your hotel lobby and other commercial spaces. Now, we would build the walls out of a lightweight terracotta block, and then we'd finish the whole thing with a stucco render.
That's really good. But, you know, I needed to know what the hotel should look like. And my father was from Spain. And during the 1920s, an Americanized version of Spanish architecture was all the rage. So I asked for my plans to be drawn up in the Spanish Revival style. Although really and truly, I needed to see what these hotels looked like when they were operating in real life. So that's when we decided to go on our tour. And my adventurous side said, well, we should take an open automobile all the way down to South Florida.
Oh, I knew you had an adventurous side, all right. That's why I had to ask twice to make sure I understood. Now, Florida had some paved roads in the 1920s, but typically they began and ended at the edge of each town. Now, most of this trip was going to be on dirt roads, which was little more than a cart path. So to travel from Biloxi to West Palm Beach with stops in Tallahassee and Tampa, well, that was going to be an adventure, all right.
That it was, Mr. Matthes. And I mean, I do have an adventurous side, but every single day was chocked full of dust. And on the rainy days, the rain would wash away the dust, but here would come the mud. And everything looked like a bottomless sinkhole than a road at all. But you know, on this trip, I did learn what a guest coming to Biloxi by automobile may need from a hotel. And my sister Teresa owned the Biloxi Sanatorium Hotel with her husband, Dr. Foltz. She was a big asset on this trip. She told me what questions to ask and what to look for while we toured the hotels.
Now, this trip gave me insights into construction methods used by architects and builders who were working with concrete frames. It really is a versatile material that stands up to termites and storms alike. You had the opportunity to point out what you liked and didn't like about various hotels we visited. Very the very...
I saw that.
Sorry, I did like it. You were able to tell me what you liked and didn't like about the various hotels we built. No two were alike. The El Verano, the El Nuevo, and the Cherokee all gave us inspiration.
They did. And those Spanish names influenced me to name my hotel the Avilés, after my father's birthplace in Spain. And the trip also helped me realize a budget. Even though I'd always envisioned 6 stories, I had to settle for 5. And of course, my architectural details, it's had to be scaled back a bit. But Mr. Matthes, I think you did a wonderful job building a beautiful hotel within my budget. I was so happy when you were a part of the business group that in 1940, after my passing, took over the hotel to keep it running.
How kind of you to say. I thought it was quite grand. The long arcade running south from Howard Avenue, lined with shops and restaurants all leading to the hotel lobby, and the rooms towering 5 stories above. There were considerably taller buildings in Chicago, but there was nothing quite like the Avilés between New Orleans and Mobile. It truly was a first of its kind on the coast. Now, even though you had to curtail your building plans because of your budget, you sure spared no expense on that opening.
Of course not, Mr. Matthes. People spent a lot of money to stay at our hotel on opening night. And on December 31st, 1923, I had a packed house. And all except for a small fire in 1930 that damaged just a little bit of the arcades and the gift shops, things were good. And my work and your design, we influenced a lot of great hotels along the coast, like the Tivoli, or the Buena Vista, or the Edgewater, and that's just to name a few.
And it made me the coast's preeminent tall building architect, netting me commissions from many of those very same hotels. Thank you very much. Now, I was quite proud of your project. However, times have changed. After the Second World War, motels became the popular form of lodging. The newness of the Avilés had worn off, and 4 months after my death in 1972, the building was demolished. Not because of any structural defects, mind you, but just a victim of changing times. Despite its demise, you set a precedent, as nowadays Biloxi is home to many of Mississippi's tallest buildings that just so happen to be hotels.
That's true, Mr. Matthes, and thank you for bringing my vision to life. I remember after we finished the Avilés, I was looking up at her right before we opened, and I thought of that Edna St. Vincent Millay poem, The Renaissance. I hold up my hand to try, I scream to feel, I touch the sky. And you know, Mr. Matthes, we indeed did touch the sky.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.